Hello Mets fans and welcome back to another video on the Around the Mets channel. Mets just made a trade last night with Luis Robert Jr. coming to New York in exchange for Luis Angel Acuna and Truman Pauly. We're going to talk all about this trade, how I feel about it, and more right here in this video. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So to start, I think this trade was long overdue. We've been hearing Luis Robert trade rumors for years now, ever since he had that big breakout season after 2023. We thought he was going to get traded 2024. He was on that White Sox team that was the worst team of all time, even though he only played 100 games. And then he was still on the team this past year. There were talks of the Mets trying to get him at the deadline, but a report did come out at that trade deadline that the White Sox were asking for Jonah Tong in exchange for Luis Robert Jr., and I completely understand why David Stearns didn't want to make that deal, giving up a top pitching prospect for a guy who hasn't been great the last few years. He had a big breakout season in 2023 with 38 home runs and 36 doubles, but since then, he's just been kind of mediocre. He's always been a great hitter, or a great fielder, but the last few years, his hitting has gone down quite a bit. Every single year of his major league career, he was either an average or above average major league hitter, and the last 2 years, he has been 15 points lower than league average. But 2023 for him, that was his big breakout year. 5.3 WAR. He hit .264 with 38 home runs, 36 doubles, 80 RBIs on that White Sox team. That was around the time where the White Sox started to decline and not look like as good of a team. He did come in second place in the Rookie of the Year voting in 2020. In the shortened season, he played 56 of those 60 games. So he has potential for sure. He can be a good hitter, and he's one of the fastest players in the league. He's a great defensive center fielder. He has had some injuries. He strained his left hamstring twice this past year, and then last year in 2024, he had a right hip flexor strain, which limited him to 110 games last year, and only 100 in 2024. So he is injury prone, we'll see, and we hope that he will be able to stay healthy in his time with the Mets. This year, his contract gets bumped up a little bit from the past few years. He is set to make $20 million this year for the Mets, and then next year he has a club option for $20 million with a $5 million buyout. But if we look at his Baseball Savant page, he's 87th percentile in fielding run value, 76th percentile in base running value from this past year. So that's clearly where he shined with his defense and his speed. But the big thing that stands out on the offensive side of the baseball is his bat speed is 75.6 miles an hour. That's 92nd percentile in the league. That is elite bat speed. And bat speed generally leads to good things, but we'll have to see how that works out. 93rd percentile in OAA and 90th in speed. So I think this is a valuable asset for the Mets. Before this trade, your outfield was Carson Bench, who has never played a major league game before, Tyrone Taylor, who hit below the Mendoza line last year, and then Juan Soto, but he's a lock for right field. I think with adding Luis Robert Jr., he gets to be in a lineup where he's not going to be the main attraction, which I think could help him thrive a little bit. If he stays healthy, I would hope that he could return to his 2023 self, but even if he can't get all the way there, I do think he's still a better hitter than Tyrone Taylor. He hit about 40 points better on the batting average than Taylor did last year. And I think their defense is very comparable. Robert is absolutely faster than Tyrone Taylor, but they're both amazing defensive center fielders. To have Taylor as a fourth outfielder that you can bring in for defense or as a pinch runner is really valuable to a team like the Mets. So I think this is a good move overall, but we do have to talk about the return. In return, the Mets gave up Luis Angel Acuna as well as Truman Pauly. Luis Angel Acuna, former top prospect, the Mets received him from the Rangers in 2023 in the Max Scherzer deal. He never really showed great offensive upside. In 2024, when he came up and Lindor was hurt towards the end of the season, he did a really nice job filling in for Francisco Lindor at shortstop. He hit a home run, and he was looking pretty good at the plate. Came into this year, and he was not hitting at all. To start the year with Jeff McNeil hurt, him and Brett Baty were platooning at second base, and eventually he did get sent down to the minors, but in the time that he was at the major league level this year, he didn't really get a lot of chances at the plate, and that's because when he was at the plate, he wasn't producing. We saw him bunt a couple times, but really when he was on the field, it was because he was running or playing defense. He's a phenomenal defensive second baseman. He can run like crazy, and truthfully for the Mets, they couldn't have Luis Angel Acuna, Brett Baty, Mark Vientos, and Ronnie Mauricio all on this roster. That's just not something you can do, especially with the addition of Bo Bichette and Marcus Semien. You have those guys with Francisco Lindor in your infield every day, so unless one of these guys learns the outfield, which, of course, Acuna does know the outfield, Baty knows it a little bit, but unless one of these guys can slot into the outfield at somewhat of a full-time rate, you're looking at a bench of 4 infielders, which is not practical for a team that is going to try and compete. You need a backup catcher, and it's always good to have an outfielder and a utility player on your bench. You can't have 4 guys on your bench that can only play 2 to 3 positions, and all of them are in the infield, and you can't carry 5 guys on your bench. That's a liability to your bullpen. So I do think that the Mets had to get rid of one of them. I expected Acuna to be the first to go. I still think there's a chance that Vientos is off of this roster by opening day as well in a different trade. However, I do think that Brett Baty and Ronnie Mauricio will stick around, at least for the start of next year. But yeah, so that's Luis Angel Acuna. As in terms of the other player the Mets gave up in return, Truman Pauly, who was drafted in the 10th round this past year in the 2025 draft by the Mets out of Harvard, so that's a little interesting. He's only thrown 4 1/3 in the minors so far, I believe, at Low A St. Lucie. I don't really know much about him. There's not much information out there on him, just because he just got drafted and he hasn't really thrown. I did see that he's given up an earned run without giving up a hit in his time in the minor league so far, so I would assume that means he is struggling with control and walks a little bit, but he's still young. I believe he's 21 years old. He has plenty of time to bounce back. So for the White Sox, they got a guy in Luis Angel Acuna who they can play every single day at second base or shortstop or the outfield if you want, third base, move him around a little bit, but probably second base primarily. And then a reliever who is going to come up in a couple years and may be something for you. So I like this trade for both sides. I think this was a trade that the Mets felt they needed to make. Cody Bellinger just went back to the Yankees today. I think the Mets knew when they were making this deal that there was a very low chance that the Mets were going to get Cody Bellinger, and the outfield options on the free agent market were lessening by the minute. So I think bringing in Luis Robert was a good idea by David Stearns and Steve Cohen. If he performs really horribly this year, you let him go next year. If he's an improvement to this team over Tyrone Taylor, I'm happy. They'll pick up the club option next year for $20 million, but we'll see how this goes. But thank you all so much for listening and watching to this video on the Around the Mets channel. If you liked the video, please leave a like down below and subscribe to this channel. I would greatly appreciate it. If you want to hear content centered around the entire MLB, check out my main channel, Around the Diamond. That link is in the description as well as the channel bio. Check out my Instagram at Around the Diamond 2. That link is in the channel description, as well as my website, Around the Diamond Designs, to see some awesome card designs. Carlos Beltran just got elected as the 3rd Met ever into the Hall of Fame. I have a Hall of Fame card of him on there. Congratulations to him. But thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.